Federation of Egalitarian Communities. A phylogenetic history, as seen from the perspective of me, Maximus Eastbrook, in November 2018. Let's begin. In 1967, Twin Oaks Community forms in Louisa, Virginia, with about a dozen members. In 1974, Eastwind Community forms in Tecumseh, Missouri, with about a dozen members, many former Oakers. They inherit much of their organizational structure from Twin Oaks. In 1976, members of Eastwind and Twin Oaks draft the original FEC Constitution. They send copies to several communities in North America. The cover letter reads, "We intend to form a Federation of Egalitarian Communities. We further propose calling a Federation Assembly in January 1977. In 1977, the first FEC Assembly is held, attended by Twin Oaks, Eastwind, Dandelion, Aloe, and North Mountain communities. The communities articulate core principles, which evolve to become membership criteria. The core principles are often under revision, and currently, in 2018, read, "Each of the FEC communities holds its land, labor, income, and other resources in common, accepts responsibility for the needs of its members, receiving the products of their labor and distributing all resources equally or according to need, practices nonviolence within our communities, works to ensure all members have equal access to decision-making, acknowledges and struggles against systemic inequalities within society and in our own communities, acts to conserve natural resources for present and future generations, facilitates interpersonal communication and group participation, supports its members' individual development." In 1979, Los Horcones community in Hermosillo, Mexico joins the FEC. Los Horcones independently developed around the same Walden II behaviorist theories as Twin Oaks. Later that year, Sandhill Farm in Rutledge, Missouri also joins the FEC. In 1980, Aloe community dissolves. Some members move to other FEC communities. North Mountain community drops FEC membership. The community in dialogue status is created. In 1981, Los Horcones drops FEC membership, citing a desire to be truer to the Walden II model. Chrysalis community in Virginia and Apple Tree in Oregon both join the FEC. In 1984, Short Mountain Sanctuary in Tennessee becomes a community in dialogue. In 1985, Medinokut community in New Hampshire becomes a community in dialogue. In 1986, Chrysalis drops FEC membership and in coming years becomes active in the New Culture Network. In 1987, Short Mountain Sanctuary drops CID status in part after questions about the alignment of the FEC non-discrimination principle with Short Mountain's mission of providing sanctuary exclusively for queer people. In 1988, Crucillo community in Baja, Mexico becomes a community in dialogue. In 1989, Medinokut drops CID status and by 2018 evolves into a summer camp and workshop business called Circleway. In 1990, Apple Tree dissolves, as does Dandelion community later that year. In 1991, Tequila community forms in Floyd, Virginia and becomes a CID, populated in part by former Twin Oakers. In 1992, Acorn Community forms in Louisa, Virginia, with the help of a large loan from Twin Oaks and with close assistance from senior FEC members. In 1996, Crucillo community dissolves. Terra Nova in Columbia, Missouri becomes a CID. Dancing Rabbit Eco Village forms in Rutledge, Missouri, spending its formative months at Sandhill Farm before purchasing property nearby. In 1997, Sky House, an income-sharing pod on the Dancing Rabbit property, joins the FEC. In 1998, two urban communities in Seattle, Washington, the Jolly Ranchers and the Emma Goldman Finishing School, both join the FEC. In 2000, the Walnut Street Co-op forms in Eugene, Oregon with the help of former Acorners and an eventual loan from the FEC, but does not become a member. In 2001, Aspenwood becomes a CID, as does Shantanagi, an income-sharing pod of Heathcote community, part of the School of Living. In 2002, Meadow Dance community in Vermont becomes a CID. In 2004, Oranmore community is formed by former members of Eastwind and becomes a community in dialogue. Later that year, both the Jolly Ranchers and Tequila community dissolve. In 2005, Aspenwood dissolves. Terra Nova drops CID status. Red Earth Farms forms in Rutledge, Missouri with the help of Sandhill Farm. Red Earth does not join the FEC. In 2008, Meadowdance dissolves. Heathcote's income-sharing pod Shantanagi stops income sharing and withdraws from the FEC. In 2010, the Midden forms in Columbus, Ohio, and joins the FEC. Living Energy Farm forms in Louisa, Virginia, with former Twin Oakers, and also joins the FEC. In 2011, Stillwater Sanctuary in La Plata, Missouri, becomes a CID. Skyhouse drops FEC membership, but continues to be an active part of Dancing Rabbit Eco Village. In 2012, Crick House becomes a community in dialogue. In 2013, the Emma Goldman Finishing School dissolves. In 2014, Crick House dropped CID status, citing property ownership concerns in its parent community, Green Valley Village. Also, former Acorners form Sapling Community in Louisa, Virginia, and purchase land with a loan from Acorn Community. Baltimore Free Farm becomes a CID. In 2015, the Mothership forms in Portland, Oregon, and joins the FEC. In 2016, Living Energy Farm and the Baltimore Free Farm both move away from income sharing and drop FEC membership. Several new communities join. Ionia, a 30-member macrobiotic community in Castleoff, Alaska, Open Circle, a small community in Culpeper, Virginia that evolved from the Finders, Quercus in Richmond with the help of former Acorners, Compersia in Washington, D.C., also with the help of former Acorners, and Cambia in Louisa, Virginia, made up of former Crick House members. In 2017, after a total membership turnover, Sapling becomes Mimosa Community. Quercus dissolves, as does Stillwater Sanctuary. The Midden moves away from income sharing and becomes a NASCO student co-op. The Rainforest Lab in Forks, Washington becomes a CID, as do Eastbrook Community Farm in Walton, New York, and Le Manoir in Passippiac, Quebec. In 2018, after 38 years of FEC membership, Sandhill Farm experiences significant membership turnover and decides to move away from income sharing. What comes next is still developing. The history of the FEC is mostly the story of 4 long-term stable members, Twin Oaks, Eastwind, Sandhill, and Acorn, and a rotating cast of smaller communes. Communities form and communities dissolve, and the network continues to evolve. In the last few years, many new communities have joined, more than double the number typical in previous decades. While some of these communities have already failed, it seems likely that a handful will remain stable, so the FEC may be entering into a new, more multivocal stage where the difficult lessons of the past are incorporated into a new generation of more diverse, interconnected communities. Time will tell. Hey. So the communities movement is decades old at this point, but it's only very recently that we've started building community online through these screens. Historically, the FEC is capped out at 200 members, and we want to see it grow way bigger. And Patreon, this little end screen solicitation here, it's a part of that. Just like the communities movement, Patreon is all about sharing. When you become a patron, you're sharing your income with us, and that, at its core, is what makes these communities work. Every time you click that like button, the communities movement grows just a little bit. For real. I'm not kidding. Okay, enough social media blah-de-blah. I'll see you next time.